What's up, everybody? I'm not going to be watching my chat tonight. I just wanted to talk about something really personal to me. Really, it's personal for so many different reasons. I couldn't even really begin to pick the best one. I wanted to talk about psychosis. How you can be psychotic sometimes in a way that, like, requires medical attention, but it's due to something real happening. So, I guess I'll talk about a very particular time. This was in 2018, going towards the new year, 2019. So, like, December, January, February of 2018, and then, January, February of 2019. This was the last time I was, I guess, victimized by that organized abuse ring. It's really hard to describe I don't know what words to use about it. I'm not like an expert on it or anything. I guess I'd call it a human trafficking ring. And the best way to describe it is it sounds like one of those typical mafia conspiracies. People with paranoid schizophrenia are like, they think everyone's out to get them. They think the Mexican mafia controls the hospital. They've got all these crazy ideas. So, my allegations of human trafficking are real. And due to the fact that the things that I'm claiming did occur to me, I am sometimes and have been actually psychotic. Which is, no, I wouldn't even really say it's embarrassing for me, but I guess it's hard for me to live in a reality where other people see me as crazy. I know you can't control other people, but I guess maybe the more honest I am about my personal experiences, perhaps the more people will understand me. I am not diagnosed with schizophrenia. I am not diagnosed with schizoaffective. I have seen many different health professionals over the years. There isn't some psychiatrist out there that thought it was schizophrenia and I was like, meh, I don't agree with you. I'm going to get another guy. Trust me, if I had a doctor that told me I was schizophrenic, I would be like, thank God. That means the mob isn't raping me at night. And the mob isn't, there's no like mafia shit or anything like that. But it's like, I would have loved to be schizophrenic because that would mean this crazy ass shit is not happening. You get what I'm saying? I would have preferred that. Sometimes I have severe psychiatric symptoms, like I'll pretend or go into denial that anything bad has ever happened to me. There are many things that were not repressed into an alternate identity or were not, covered under some type of drug. I remembered the whole thing when it happened and I always remembered it afterwards. Sometimes I'll even go into denial that these things happened. So I have very severe psychiatric symptoms, and most people on the internet are not professionals, obviously. So, and I'm very aware of that. So I feel like I should kind of make things easier for my viewers so that I'm a little bit less ambiguous to anyone who may be watching. I never really expected my channel to get a following of any kind. I don't know that I would say 150 subscribers is a following, which I love every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself here. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm enjoying myself at the very least, so. And initially I was like, well, that's all that's really about for me. This is just a hobby. It uses a lot of my different talents. Like, I know a bit about graphic design, a bit about computer programming, a bit about drawing. I had a lot of fun making my OBS overlay and coding some of the, timers and stuff that display. And I enjoy, like, making logos and stuff for the whole content creator thing. I never expected to make any money, and I don't make any money, but I never expected to, like, have anybody really watch. And I kind of do have some people watching, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, I felt like I should make things more for other people and less just me randomly vomiting, stream of consciousness style, my thoughts. But yeah, with that comes so many challenges. I don't know how I'm going to organize all of that. But yeah, I made some notes here in a blank Discord chat that I have open here where I leave notes to myself. It helps me stay organized. So yeah, I just have an empty Discord chat. I'm just reading what I was going to say. But so yeah, I have all these severe psychiatric symptoms, and my confusion will almost certainly confuse anybody watching, particularly anyone without some type of education in mental illness treatment. So really, probably even some people with that. Some makeup from like a day ago just fell into my eye. I went crazy with makeup. Um, I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to cry. This was the worst time for it. Like 2 days ago or whatever, I put on some makeup because I was just having fun. It looked so bad. It was so extreme. And I tried to remove it yesterday. And, I took a shower today. And this makeup is immortal. I swear to God, something just fell in my eye. And I'm like, do you ever get something in your eye and you absolutely, like, it just fucking ruins your life for like 10 or 15 minutes? Well, I hope it won't go on for that long. But it just like won't come out. You're like about to tear up. It's just in there. Okay. Well, anyway. So I have all these severe psychiatric symptoms and they'll be very confusing to other people. So I felt like I should explain some element of that comes up frequently that I think probably looks confusing to other people. Is first of all my denial that anything ever happened. I'll randomly be like, "Are my repressed memories real?" It's like, yeah, they're real, but there are reasons why I feel like they're not real sometimes. I have this huge sense of shame and this like internalized fear that I'm permanently psychotic. I am not. I have overcome almost all of these issues, and they only reoccur whenever I think I've been abducted and raped again. Um, okay, so I've actually been psychotic before, like in the way that you would expect from schizophrenia, and it was because this stuff really happened. So back in 2018, my roommate had just moved out to get married to her boyfriend in Germany. She never spoke to me again. She became very paranoid. I have no idea what my roommate's deal was. She was not a human trafficker. So I really don't even fucking know what her deal was. She became very paranoid, and she admitted this to me like midway through living with me and said that she felt like she'd had a stroke basically, and that was really abnormal, and she was afraid she was developing schizophrenia. She talked about how it felt like everything was a conspiracy. I was going through similar issues where I was having very strange and abnormal thoughts as well that were not typical for me. So there were a couple of different places where I think that could have been coming from, but I guess I will never know for sure. If someone laces your weed, it's not like they're going to come over and be like, "Hey, you caught me. I laced it with this specific chemical." It's like they're not going to fucking tell you they did it. See, what is it? CSI, the lab from CSI is not going to come in, digitally analyze the pot and be like, "This is what it was for realsies." I mean, you're never going to fucking know certain things. Um, so yeah, I'm so sorry. I just had a momentary lapse of attention or I forgot what I was talking about. It's a common symptom of being a human being, but I get it a lot when I'm, first of all, tired, and second of all, because I have DID. But yeah, I'm looking at my prepared notes. Trying to think of a really like concise way to summarize this grander concept I'm trying to convey of why I don't have a lot of faith in my sanity for very real reasons, while at the same time logically those reasons mean that I am sane now and will become increasingly more sane, the less I'm abducted. Okay, so a perfect way to talk about this. I'm looking at my example here. It's so fucking you know what? I'm just going to read you my note and you'll understand why I'm having a really hard time conveying this grand idea here. Okay. Okay, actually here are my notes. Wake up next day. So yeah, I'm just talking about wake up next day with sudden memories of being roofied and raped. Okay, so a lot of my abuse that happened at home, like my mother or father abusing me, is not a repressed memory and never was. Um, God, I do love my mother and sister, but there was sex abuse between all members of my household. Um, well, I'm not incestuous, but everyone else was. So some of that was repressed into alternate identities, but in a way that's kind of like you always remembered it, but you just like have another version of yourself that remembers it and the rest of you doesn't. But most of it was not repressed. The only thing that was repressed was the sexual abuse between my mother and my sister. Those I repressed. The sexual abuse between my father and I repressed some of it and not all of it. Oh, as for the organized abuse, I actually did not repress all of it. There were some weird times as a child where, okay, so there are two versions of memories, not even memories, okay. So there are two ways in which I experienced the organized abuse very directly. Um, this is excluding alternate identities. I have some alternate identities that remember stuff and I don't understand them. So that's a type of memory compartmentalization, but it's not like real in a way, but in a way it's very real. But it's not like, having been roofied or something. The memories are obviously still there. And if you get me at the right time, I can even tell you what they are very realistically and accurately. But so just trying to step away from that one for the time being. I'm so mad at myself that I have that problem. It's so fucking stupid. It's literally like lying to yourself. Um, So there was this type of experience I have had my entire fucking life. It's always with different people, and they're into different things, but they're very consistent, the things that they're into. Sometimes when I've had these psychotic episodes, everyone kind of like merged together into one unholy, like demonic man that did everything. But then, when I became less like unstable, everything like went back to being several different people who happen to know each other. Okay, so I would just be in a ring. So that was like something that would happen not just as a child but as an adult. It'd like just be like, just imagine like you're eating dinner one moment and then all of a sudden you're just in a fucking sex trafficking ring. You're held down. Something really fucking painful is happening. Like you're getting stun gunned or raped or somebody's laughing on top of you. Actually, it seemed like they seemed to notice when I had woken up. Not in this example, but there were a couple other examples where I remember them very vividly being like, oh shit, she's waking up, she's waking up. And then they like thought this was so fucking funny. And then they said something about how they were going to knock me out again. And then I lost consciousness again. But so that's a way in which I have... Somebody just followed, or did something. Thank you so much for doing that. Hope you're enjoying this. So that is one type of memory that does not qualify as a repressed memory. It's like I was there when that happened. Like I am doing this stream. I didn't fucking repress it. The next day I wake up after I lost consciousness again. So yeah, that's how it would be. So like as a kid, actually, one time I remembered really strongly this happened. I was maybe like 4 or 5 years old. And I went from just being in my bedroom and I was trying to take a nap and I was I had these guardrails around my bed. And then suddenly I'm in this fucking room that's like painted red and there's this guy wearing this like devil mask and he's coming up to me and he's making this weird noise and kind of like a Gucci Gucci Goo kind of noise. And like the walls are kind of melting and shimmering and I feel really fucking strange. And it's like that for like 5 minutes. And then suddenly it's the next day. Like it's the next morning. So that happened constantly. And then, obviously there's like, he comes up to me and he starts how graphic do you want me to be? He comes up and he rubs my clitoris. Then I'm suddenly, it's the next day. You're probably wondering where the sex trafficking happened in that memory. It's like, so that's a type of memory that was not repressed and experience that happens to me frequently. Some periods of my life, it's more frequent than others. So there's that. Some of it was never repressed. Like there was the guy, I've talked about it a lot on my Tumblr. You can check it out there, ansomreportinfinity.tumblr.blah blah blah. It's somewhere on my social media. I've actually been trying to blog more about it recently. You can check it out there. I'm thinking of just doing kind of like a rogues gallery kind of thing where I just talk about each of my specific abusers. I'm trying to have self-esteem and live and not die like several of my abusers would like me to. Ugh. With some rapists, it's about rape. With others, they actually want to watch you die. Like, they're not exactly serial killers. They might not come into your house and kill you. A couple people are like that. But they still will get off if you die. There's like this sadistic thing. Yeah, okay, so that's one type of memory I have that's not repressed. I saw someone who had a listing of, okay, so imagine you wake up the next day with this weird fucking memory. Okay, for anyone out there that has gotten blackout drunk, I'm sure you woke up the next day, but you kind of you didn't remember anything, but you kind of remembered some things. And maybe like you'd look at a text you sent and then suddenly it'll come back to you. Like you'd remember a couple of things. Okay, so imagine like you just wake up one morning and you have this weird like 50% memory. Your friend Maria, who you know from your lab, who's married to somebody whose family molested you as a kid. The guy she's married to didn't molest you as a kid, although you do remember him raping you as a teenager. But their family molested you as a kid. I know, what a fucking coincidence. I did my postgraduate education an hour away from my house. I'm kind of triggered now in more of an anxiety way, not like I'm gonna fall down and die kind of way. I have that type of flashback where I re-experience the pain and I get very sick. But my blood pressure has dropped out. My legs are very minorly shaking, kind of like, shivering. That happens when I get really anxious. But this is very healthy for me to talk about. I did this weird thing where it's like I had this infinitely negative self-esteem and I was just like mutilating my character in public and not caring how anybody saw me and just acting weird because I just didn't give a fuck at all. So imagine like always being mildly drunk, but like I'm not drunk. I don't drink anymore. Aside from like maybe one night every like 6 months, and I don't even get drunk. I'll get like a bit tipsy maybe. Maybe I'll have like a couple Mike's Hards. I'm not a drinker, but yeah, just like a level of severe depression and self-hatred where I just am doing weird shit. I'm watching how it freaks people out. I'm like, I'm not hurting people in any significant way, but I'm like, just fucking bizarre. Just being weird and not caring what anyone thinks about me. And it's super unhealthy. I need to go back to trying to be cool, at least. And trying to give a fuck about myself. If I could be a little bit more safe than I am now, and things are much better than when I lived with my abusers, that would be great, but yeah. Okay, where was I? I was looking at this. Oh yeah, I talk about what it is that I actually remembered. So there are things that weren't repressed. The guy with the keylogger. So there was this group of people that I bought weed from. I am not a hard drug user. I never really have been, but I did love pot. Now I have a medical marijuana card. It's a great drug. It does help with PTSD. But now that, thank God for dispensaries, but so they happen to know some people that I had repressed memories of molesting me as a kid. Anyway, so this was not a repressed memory. These people that I had repressed memories of trafficking me with the people that trafficked me as a child, who they were friends with each other in real life, outside of the repressed memories. Okay, so that's how that worked. That's how I'll explain that. So there's repressed memories of all of these individuals being traffickers. However, there was a specific group of people I bought pot from, and the pot made me fucking crazy. There was something in it. It damaged my body permanently. I had to go to physical therapy because I had muscle wasting. It was fucking horrible. My muscles had wasted, and my kidneys had been damaged. So I had this like chronic severe pain. And it got to the point where I couldn't laugh without like starting to tear up and wanting to cry because it hurt so bad. I have no idea what they poisoned me with, but it was very, very bad. And I don't live with that kind of pain anymore. Thank fucking God. When I say I have pain due to what happened, I'm diagnosed with fibromyalgia, but I do not think I have it. I do not have any of those fucking pressure points or whatever the fuck. My pain is literally in places where I was abused. So here's an example of my fibromyalgia pain. I'm currently seeing a general practitioner now, and I just had an EEG done today. I'm seeing a neurologist. We're getting to the bottom of some of this shit. Fibromyalgia is not the issue here. Okay, so I have a bunch of memories of being stunned on my face. This is a repressed memory. I do not remember having ever been stunned outside of a repressed memory that I remembered the next day. Okay. Actually, I do have some memories of being stunned in those weird things where it's like I teleport to a ring for like 5 minutes and then I go back to like the next day. But so yeah. Right, where was I? As you can see, these are some big fucking ideas. Okay, so I had a bunch of repressed memories of people specifically stunning me in my head. And I coincidentally, now I didn't initially remember the specific places I had been stunned. It was a little bit more ambiguous than that. I'll go into that nuance some other time. But I had this weird tingling sensation down my face along like very specific, like, I don't know if it's like the nerve, I guess it must be, but the area that like hurt during the trauma. But it didn't exactly hurt. You know, the memory would be in the back of my head of being stunned on the head very distantly and very vaguely. And I, like, half the time didn't even believe it was a real memory, you know, because this is one of the ones that happened when I was, like, knocked out. So you know, it's hard to believe something happened to you, especially something significant if you were unconscious. Well, to be honest with you, it doesn't seem like I was unconscious for these things. It's more like I got knocked out afterwards and then remembered what had happened immediately leading up to it. So I am conscious for part of it. That's the part that I remember later. Well, anyway, whatever. So, I had all these weird... Actually, you know what? I just remembered how this really worked. My memory is filled with so many different ideas. Okay. So, this is what made me feel schizophrenic at first. So I had all of these weird feelings on my face in these specific areas, like on my cheek, going around my jaw, up here. And then I kept thinking these things like I wouldn't hear anything outside of my head, but I'd get this memory in my head of one of the people I knew trafficked me. Oh yeah, I want to finish something. Oh my fucking God, I have so many stories right now that are just in the background and are like in progress and I haven't closed them up and I'm going insane just trying to keep track of them. Oh my fucking God. Okay, so I was in one of the traffickers' houses, Maria, and so, okay, imagine that the next day you wake up with this, like, weird memory, like you've been blacking out drunk, but then you remembered some random part the next day. It's just like this really significant shit happened. So one thing I remembered was I had been watching Yu Yu Hakusho around that time. I was at the plot arc with Sensui and Tarukane and whatever. Thank you so much for the whatever you did. I think I have that tone just for follow, but I might have it for something else. Glad you're enjoying yourself. But anyway, so these creeps they had me keylogged. That's not a repressed memory. That's one of the things that's not a repressed memory. The guy that had me keylogged was one of the guys selling me pot that was poisoning me. And he actually showed up at my house one day after I, like, talked about how much he scared me and how, like, he did XYZ to me in a journal. And then I also talked about it in a private chat, you know, a Facebook chat. Not a public one. And the journal was a Microsoft Word diary. It was not online at all. It was just on my computer. So he showed up the next day and showed me his phone. And he had my diary entry in it. And the thing I had said to my friend. So he had his window up with the car. And he just put it to the car. And I stared at the phone. And then I looked at his face. There's just like this. I don't even know what to describe it as. It's just homicidal. It's not like he looked angry. It's not like he looked upset. It's not even like he looked blank. He just looked intense in this very strange way. I couldn't even really fucking describe it. I left the state and stayed with my cousin Liz, who lives in Bloomington, Indiana. Okay, so there's that. That was not repressed memory. He really had me keylogged. Anyway, so long story short, one of my memories I woke up with the next day was this woman, Maria, had given me over to this guy. This one, I don't even know what the purpose of, I don't think there was a purpose actually. This is me speculating needlessly. But anyway, she was just basically like, oh yeah, you're diagnosed with DID. Your alternate identity name for this guy is Tarukane because you're so ugly and like have such a bad personality like that guy from that dumb show you always watch. So anyway, I'm in this woman's house and she has this fucking bizarre paper in it that has a drawing of Tarukane and 3 other characters that I had other memories of. So there's Junpyo from Boys Over Flowers, and Catalina from this Peruvian soap opera she was watching. I had this weird fucking memory of that happening, like on 3 different nights with those 3 different names. Anyway, so I went to her house one day and I was looking at one of her notebooks and it just had Catalina, Tarukane, and Jumpio. And for some bizarre fucking reason, it had like red, yellow, and like a bunch of color names around it with arrows going between them and a giant circle on it that said heroin. I'm like, I mean, the repressed memories, and then I find that diary. I go to explain this to people, and I'm like, what does this diary even mean? Like, it's just a drawing of some characters and some colors, but with the repressed memories. I had the memories first, and then I found the book, and I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, I don't know. I go to say that as evidence. I'm like, I know how fucking stupid that sounds, but, so that was kind of like evidence, but yeah, Keylogger guy was great evidence. That was not repressed memory. I was not on drugs. I wasn't even smoking pot at that time. Yeah, so he showed up, showed me that he does in fact, that people do in fact look at my internet output. And by people, I mean, you know, that guy that raped me. So yeah, okay, so Keylogger guy sold me laced pot. It was definitely laced. There's no ambiguity about it. I had to see doctors. It was kind of like a chronic poisoning thing. I don't know what precisely was in it, but it had a very light hallucinatory component to it. I never did the hard drugs, okay? I've smoked my fair share of pot, which I do legally now, but, it caused some weird visual distortion. I don't know. I've never experienced anything like it. It wasn't exactly like a hallucination either, though. It's kind of like things shimmered a bit, I guess is how I would describe it. Another guy gave me laced weed later that knew the first guy. Okay, so there were 3 different people that all knew each other, and I retardedly bought weed from all 3 of them because they kept blaming the other one and saying the other one was the bad one and they'd never do that, and I'm a gullible person. We'll get into that more later. Okay, this is the non-repressed memory side, by the way. There's no ambiguity to this, okay? So the one guy gave me this lace pot that fucked with me in one particular way that was really severe. I had to go see doctors. Another guy, his friend Merlin, told me he was a hitman. He wants to kill people, but he'd totally never kill me. He knows the location of unmarked graves where people are buried and no one knows about it. Told me he knows his own grower. That doesn't fucking mean anything. What else did he say? He said some really fucking weird shit. I don't know. He just said a bunch of other things like that. Did I say he said he was a hitman? He said he was a hitman. He said he had been programmed. So there was that. You know, I keep going back and forth between whether I'll just, you know what? I won't say any more about it. I'll see if I eventually remember it. I'm taking the crazy meds again. Antipsychotics and antidepressants both make me remember my repressed memories. I know, isn't that funny? Most people go to get on the medication to no longer have the weird ideas. I go on the medication and it makes it even more real. It makes it undeniably real, actually. And really painful. I have pain flashbacks where I re-experience the pain, and I once had a pain flashback that was a combination of being anally raped while someone stun-gunned my chest. I had the visual of it very clear in the back of my mind. And I passed out. I vomited, fell to the floor, had this severe vertigo, and then I passed out on my bathroom floor from a flashback. Okay. So that all happened. I'm sorry that I'm trying to talk about like 50 different things at the same time. This is really complicated to talk about. This is why I usually don't get into specifics. So, okay, I guess I'll just continue talking about stuff that wasn't repressed. I have a few other friends that knew the individuals involved, and they all claim that they were raped and trafficked by them as well. That was good evidence. I've seen a fuckload of doctors. I don't have schizophrenia. It has very particular symptoms. While I was actually psychotic from some of the abuse, from being drugged and so forth, schizophrenia is very different from other types of psychotic issues. So you can be psychotic for a reason that has nothing to do with schizophrenia. In my case, it was a combination of psychotic depression. You know, you're so depressed that you just lose touch with everything. Um, there's PTSD psychosis, which can be things like you have a flashback and you recreate the effects of being drugged. You can't, of course, fully recreate them, but you can partially do so. And, you know, you're so terrified and not thinking well that you can have a very temporary psychosis. There are dissociative psychoses where basically you're so disconnected from your present reality, usually because you're stuck in a flashback, that you start like mixing elements of the present with the past. Like you dissociate elements with each other, basically. Had that. And then, you know, just the psychosis that comes from, okay, so being stun gunned, particularly on the head, this will happen even if if you aren't stunned on the head. So one of the people that trafficked me as a child and then raped me again as an adult, and like this guy knew my uncle and everything. It's gonna sound weird that some of these people were professors and stuff that I knew as an adult, but it's like these people actually knew my family and shit. Like, it's a small world, but it's not that weird, actually. So, how would I go? What was I saying about that? I'm always really defensive, if you can't tell. I have tons of anxiety. A lot of that is me projecting my own insecurities about my perception of reality. But, you know, a couple of these people were psychologists. A couple of them were doctors. They had obsessions related to their careers, unsurprisingly. This one guy was obsessed with schizophrenia, and he role-played things related to it. At least, I guess, the real memories that I initially remembered and then eventually flashed back to, and then remember, I mean, but it's like such a fucking exotic and weird thing. I don't know. I'll say more about this later. I'm clearly having a lot of dissonance about it, as you can see me talking to myself, like going around in circles as I talk to myself. So, there were things that were never repressed. I caught several of my rapists stalking me in person. Like, I saw this one guy get out of his car. I saw him do a lot more things. The guy with the keylogger stalked me the most, both in person and online. There's this other guy, though, that's like a professor, guy with like a good job and shit. And like, I saw him in a... Okay, so anyway, we're going to get away from repressed versus not repressed. I know how it sounds. He stalked me. The mob's stalking me. But in my case, it's actually true. So, anyway, I just wanted to talk about having actually had a psychotic episode while being drugged and raped. I'm gonna finally get back to that fucking story I started. So my roommate had left. It's December 2018. I do not fully remember what happened. I had a lot of moments where I teleported into the middle of being violently abused and then ended up teleporting to the next day. Woke up with quite a few injuries. Okay, so one morning I woke up and I had this clear memory of this guy, Tim G. You know, I get so paranoid about using names. I really, for various reasons, I'm like, are they gonna fucking harass me over that shit? But, Timothy Geiger. So, I woke up one morning with this fucking vivid memory of Timothy Geiger. A lot of different things happened. It was a fucking long-ass set of, like, fragments of a memory. Like, imagine a memory of being electrocuted and raped and abducted, and then you turn it into a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and then you only remember about 350 of the pieces. That's waking up the next day. And then through post-traumatic flashbacks, you remember an additional maybe 300. Maybe 500. I'll say 500. Still missing a few things, though, at the end of the day. Okay, so I woke up the next day with this fucking complicated array of, like, confusing-ass memories of my poetry professor stunning me, raping me. I can't access it very well right now. It's not like it gets re-repressed, but it's like sometimes, like, you know, like some days you'll go back to remembering your high school graduation or whatever, and like some days you'll be able to remember a more vivid account than others. Like, you'll randomly be like, oh yeah, and then I remember me and Casey or whatever said literally this word for word, because, you know, you were suddenly nostalgic for it. He said some fucking ridiculous shit, as he always does. Also, alternate identities are still a thing, even if I've remembered something in my main identity. I'm slowly integrating all of them. I wish I could remember. The emotional abuse haunts me more than the physical abuse. Oh, actually, okay, these are two so fucking complicated thoughts. I have to close up a second thing that I just realized I didn't finish talking about. Okay, the weird phantom feelings on my face. So I would get these weird feelings on my face, and then I would hear inside my head, not outside my head, like a friend's voice, Maria, being like, you're gonna get tooth rot from that fetish of yours. And then she'd like stun my cheek and was like, your teeth are gonna rot out from talking about all the abuse. Then she like stunned me. It's like, if you talk to the police, you'll get tooth rot. She kept saying shit about tooth rot. Like, okay, you know how when a guy really wants to bang a chick and he's like, oh, I'm gonna fuck your tits and I'm gonna suck on them, I'm gonna suck on that, and your nipples are gonna get hard. And like, you know, he just keeps going back and forth. And then I'm gonna suck on them again. It's like that, but with someone really wanting you to have like, it's just that, but with sadism. Just that, but with sadism. Okay. So I just kept hearing that, and like it would go on for hours because I would keep having the feelings, and it would keep going to different things she was saying, and it would feel like I was in different times of my life. Not feel like I was in different times of my life. You know how when you're nostalgic, you'll suddenly feel like let's say you're nostalgic for your 10th birthday party, you suddenly feel like, you don't exactly feel like you're 10, but you know, you can tell you're in that part of your mind. You feel kind of like you were 10. You don't age regress. So that was basically what happened. I felt like I kept moving into a kaleidoscope of different but related times of this woman, like of different people, not just her, stunning my mouth and saying those things. And that was the thing of it. I didn't initially remember it as stunning. I initially just remembered it as the you're gonna get tooth rot. And then I'd get really weird thoughts about like this Tooth Fairy movie I watched as a kid. Like all these weird fucking ideas would come together. And they'd be accompanied by this weird sense of rage that makes no fucking sense. I didn't even initially hear it as Maria. It was just like anonymous voice in my head. You're gonna get tooth rot. Okay, so I'm like, I guess the schizophrenia is coming. I've resigned myself to it. I hate myself. Okay, so guess what happened? Randomly one day, I have this vivid fucking post-traumatic flashback of Maria stun gunning me in the face and saying I'm gonna get tooth rot and sadistically screwing, like, you know, taunting me. Like, it was no longer a bunch of weird ideas that were all kind of related to a theme. And I can totally even think of how that works neurologically. It's because I was seeing the non-repressed memories that were synaptically stored in the brain near the ones that were repressed. So I could see the ideas that were nearby. But anyway, so I no longer have weird thoughts about the Tooth Fairy accompanied by a vague sense of tingling. Now I will randomly feel as though Maria is fucking stun gunning me in the face, and if it goes on for long enough, I will fucking vomit because the pain is so bad. The more I remember it, the better it gets, and it seems that eventually, maybe it's possible that I just re-repressed it, but it seems eventually it turns into a normal memory and the pain goes away. I fucking hope so. I need that to happen. God, the idea that these people permanently maimed me, and they were trying to. That was a part of my abuse with this one. These were very highly educated rapists. He really was sadistically, like, interested in this idea of creating a couple of them. And they had different mental and physical illnesses that they wanted to create within a person for sadistic glee. Oh, God, it's complicated. And that's another reason why I feel permanently insane. It did affect me. They did maim. I was permanently maimed by what happened. I posted this on my Tumblr maybe a couple weeks ago. I have a lot of physical and mental health conditions caused by this. Yeah, so that was fucking bizarre. That was one episode. That's one example of like a post-traumatic. I don't know that I'd say I was psychotic. You know, I didn't think that the Tooth Fairy was gonna murder me or anything like that. It was just more like I had these weird, disturbing thought bundles that would make me feel rage for no fucking reason. I would just, Actually, I did sort of feel a reason. I just get really fucking angry at Maria having trafficked me with no, like, idea that it was connected specifically to anything tooth related. Um, yeah, and then one day I fucking remembered the actual memory in a flashback. Flashbacks are not like remembering a normal memory. When you have a flashback, you re-experience the memory inside of your mind's eye so vividly, second by second. You know, like, think about this morning. Let's say you ate cereal. That's all you remember. Just a very vague image of you eating cereal. You could even make a little image of yourself, like you could try to recreate it, yourself eating cereal. Okay. In a post-traumatic flashback, there is no ambiguity. There's none at all. Like, okay, actually, let me back up. In a full-on flashback, there are many different kinds of flashbacks you can have, but in one of the most severe kind, and just because your flashback isn't always like of this type doesn't mean you don't have severe PTSD or anything like that. But if you have a full-on flashback, it's like a fucking movie. You can see like every single fucking wrinkle on the guy's face as he's raping you, and his face lights up with sadistic glee. Every fucking wrinkle. Dude, I'm not fucking kidding. And you can remember. See, now I'm speaking vaguely because I'm not flashed back to it. It's back to being a normal memory, or even one that I've partially stored in another part of myself. And it's ambiguous, but when I'm flashing back to it, I can tell you word for word what they fucking said. I could even like, God, and it's so hard. Like I start coming out of the flashback sometimes. It's called grounding if I like start drawing or whatever, but like during the worst parts of the flashback, I could draw you like a fucking photograph of like where vases are, sofas are, what everyone is wearing. Were they wearing like, not glasses, what's a better detail? God, I don't fucking know. Oh God, it's so specific. So then I started having flashbacks of like an actual memory, and now I don't have the weird ambiguous rage attacks connected to really weird disconnected thoughts. Like they never turned into a delusion or anything like that. It just was this weird thing that kept happening to me, and it was making me miserable because it would happen for hours out of every single fucking day. So yeah, that's one episode. That's one example of my, I don't know, insanity, I guess. I don't fucking know. Of my PTSD. Okay, back to what I was trying to talk about, though. I was trying to talk about times I was actually crazy. And it was not due to schizophrenia. It was because this shit actually happened to me. Okay, so back to the winter of 2018 to 2019. I swear to God, I get like severe ADHD, and I feel like my mind is exploding anytime I sufficiently talk about this stuff. Like you'll see me sometimes confidently talk on air. It's an alternate identity that deals with daily life, making a very brief appearance. Probably that stream is like 50% of what it did that day. And that version of me is so fucking emotionally and sometimes very literally cut off from the trauma. I mean, you know, there are things that I remember. I always remember, even as those main identities now. God, though, for a long ass fucking time, I had an identity that I am, I think, integrated with. God, I hope so. It thought it was schizophrenic. All of the other identities did not, except this one fucking identity. It was the black sheep of my alternate identities. I had to have a lot of talks with my therapist that I'm not, he has to explain to me regularly that I'm not schizophrenic and that my perception of reality is real. That is a trauma symptom, by the way. That's what happens to people that have been severely and like horrifically abused. They will like question their perception of reality and have really fucking stupid like mind games that they get into like that are really severe and like really upset their stability. Anyway, so one particular, like every night, actually, it was literally every time I went to sleep, and then I eventually realized I wasn't remembering when I was going to bed or taking naps. Sometimes that happens to me now, and I'm pretty sure that's just nothing. Imagine going 2 weeks, paying attention to this, you're waking up with these wild memories of an insane man, Actually, it's an entire, his friends are doing it with him sometimes. Sometimes it's just him. Sometimes it's a different person that was in that group of friends. You keep waking up with these memories of these people stunning and raping you and doing all kinds of other stuff. This one guy was really racist and was always shouting racist shit. And then you realize it was like a fucking horror movie. And then you realize that you don't remember when you're going to sleep anymore. And then finally, one morning you wake up. Timothy Geiger is in your memories. He stunned you. He's raped you again. It's a whole rigmarole. You even sort of remember the abduction. You remember the car. God, for a brief moment, I did. I had a flashback where I remembered something a little bit more. It'll come back to me. It always does eventually. And then you remember him at the very end taking you back to your house, throwing you on the floor, telling you if you talk to the police that, me, he told me that I'll go away instead of him. And then he knocked over my aloe plant and got down and ripped it up and said, "You're going to need the aloe for how badly I'm going to burn you," or something fucking stupid. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm losing it right now over this. I am like having a type of emotional flashback. And then you wake up the next morning with bruises exactly where you remember him hitting you, and you walk into your living room and the aloe plant is destroyed just as you remember. And then I moved back home with my mom. So that's when the worst of my abuse stopped, but I've been waking up. There was one night a year ago in January where I woke up with a bleeding vagina, not my period, middle of my cycle, actually. Great timing for that, I guess. My vagina was so badly damaged that it hurt to sit down or wear underwear for a week. I mean, it hurt just not doing anything, but it was excruciatingly painful to just sit down, to just put on the loosest of granny panties for a week. I went online, it was a little bit over a week, maybe it was like 8 or 9 days. I read around that time that like after childbirth, it tears your vagina and damages it pretty significantly. That heals after 3 to 4 days. I had these disturbing memories of being raped with a metal instrument. It's really weird. I'm not quite sure what it is. It kind of looked like a speculum, but it wasn't. God, I think it might have been like a power tool or something. But I was raped with a metal instrument, and it was like... and I was also raped with electrical instruments as well. That happened frequently. But this metal thing really, really fucking got me. I've had flashbacks of it, and I can feel... and he also somehow, I think must have used a stunning thing as well, because there's like... the pain of being, I don't know, I guess the pain must be similar. I don't think there was any stunning. But yeah, he put this metal instrument, and it was like, it was painful like stunning and like really fucking brain. Long story short, when I flash back to it, I can like feel it go up through like my ovaries, and like, when you get like, any women out there, when you get a pap smear and the like gynecologist, inserts her finger and like inserts the speculum and stuff and like palpates the ovary and stuff, those exact areas, my fucking God. I have permanent nerve damage from all of this. It's called vestibulitis. It's possible to get that from non-traumatic causes, but mine is traumatic. They give you lidocaine cream and gabapentin for it, none of which I felt helped. I mean, with the lidocaine cream, then you don't feel things, so... you don't want to use that during sex. I just don't even bother with that. There was this, okay, so not to have yet another weird aside, but they have like vaginal therapy. I got referred to a vaginal therapist. This is like a real doctor and everything. And I never got to the therapy. It was the weirdest fucking thing. I saw this person for like 6 months, and they just very slowly worked their way up, touching me, and then we're going to, I guess, start touching my vagina. I had no idea what was going to happen when they got to my vagina. They never did. I stopped going in. But it was vaginal rejuvenation therapy, and they had like a gym in there and shit, and it was the weird, I don't understand what that was. I don't feel like it was going to be helpful though. So that happened. What was I fucking talking about with my aloe plant and Timothy Geiger, and then I started losing it. I had some grander point there. Oh, yeah, and Power Tools and Mr. Faust. That was the guy with the power tools that raped me with the power tools. He also raped me as a child and bragged to me about murdering his wife. You know, it's like with the hitman. Someone could just be saying stuff to be offensive, right? He's also raping me and a pedophile and a human trafficker. And then he actually posted some pictures on my Tumblr. He assaulted me a couple weeks ago. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, the injuries from that were really clear. With the vaginal bleeding, I had drug withdrawals the next day. I felt like I had suddenly caught the flu in my legs. Like, when you withdraw from an antidepressant, your legs kind of feel like they're electric. I had that. What else? My shirt was on backwards when I woke up that day. That was fucking strange. The door was wide open. It was the middle of winter. And I had footprints. It had snowed that night, conveniently, quite hard. And I had footprints that were partially covered up going to the street, and then footprints that were much fresher going back to my house. That fucked me up. A couple of mornings, I just woke up at the park, like I was just already there for no apparent reason. Like, I guess I must have woken up there. It's almost like, imagine, like, you don't wake up like you've been asleep or anything. It's just sort of like, you're just there. It's 6 in the morning, you're at the park. Why are you at the park? That happened a couple of times. Like, a couple of times, a couple of different years. There was another night about a year ago. It was a series of nights. I can't remember which one came after the next, but one morning I woke up with a memory of being raped, and then I had a bite mark on my thigh where I remembered the person biting me in the memory. And then another night, maybe a couple weeks before or after that, it was two separate incidents. I woke up with a bite mark on my breast. I didn't specifically remember that one happening, but bite marks don't grow on trees. I mean, okay, so there's all that. So this was just all the stuff that's not in my head. I guess I should be fairly certain that it happened, but I don't know. The Bergmans, they were the people that trafficked me in Toledo and Oak Harbor. It was 2 different rings. So imagine, like, a human trafficker goes to another town, and then they eventually meet like-minded people. Like, imagine your weed dealer moves to another town, he finds other dudes that smoke pot. I always feel like it sounds like I'm talking in that the way that schizophrenics do, where they're like, the mafia is everywhere. It's like, it's not fucking really. Just think of it like that. Your pothead was a pothead in Oak Harbor. Then he moved to Toledo, and he had his pothead friends in Oak Harbor. Then he moves to Toledo, and he finds some more pothead friends. There is nothing that weird about it. But I hear it. I hear exactly how paranoid it is. Okay. How paranoid it sounds. Okay. Whenever I defend myself, it just kind of takes the wind out of my sails for a little bit. So anyway, while Timothy Geiger is raping me, and this persisted for quite some time after the incident, I became insane. And I knew I was not thinking normally. I couldn't even really put into words. It was like my entire mind had become a fucking cartoon. I was constantly, everything was dramatic, more so than it should have been. All of my thoughts were these cartoonish animations. Everything was inspiring insane amounts of creativity. And I have bipolar disorder, right? That sounds like a mania, but I've had manias. It's not like that. There was something very strange about how my mind was working. It was just off. I was going a million miles a minute. I had this empty Discord chat room, and I was trying to talk to the people that were raping me through it. But I got all these weird fucking delusions. Okay, so I'm telling you all this exotic shit. I kept remembering a ring raping me. I didn't really get it because I was remembering it in fragmented pieces the next day after being roofied and then dropped off back at my house. But I'm pretty sure it happened because, they left damage in my actual apartment that matched with the repressed memories. Okay, are you with me so far? Okay. Just a reminder, I'm not reading chat messages right now. I usually do. I really appreciate anybody who's watching, if anyone's out there. So, that stuff is all real. I talk to doctors a lot, therapists. I tell them about all these weird ideas, including the weird shit that I did in response to it. Had the weirdest fucking psychotic break. I don't even fucking know what it was. It was like the most severe manic episode of all time. So I have this empty Discord chat, right? That no one's in it, it's just me, it's private. So I'm talking to what I think are my abusers, and they're showing up in these repressed memories the next day. And so the repressed memories and all this insane shit I'm saying is the real shit. Now here's where the delusion in the psychotic episode happened. I had all these weird fucking ideas. Okay, so every hour of every day, I'm just in this fucking chat. If I'm not somewhere else, like getting lunch or like buying, like I bought some sweaters and stuff. If I'm not doing an errand or something, I'm in this fucking chat talking for 10 plus hours a day. Okay. And I'm saying all this weird fucking shit every day. It's a different set of weird ass shit. One day I had this very particular delusion that the human traffickers were mind control programming me by torturing me, and they really do love me. That's why they do those things to me. There was like weird Stockholm syndrome that bled into these weird fucking delusions. And they wanted me to be the ultimate wife to a human trafficker who was also a secret FBI agent. Remember how I said there was a guy that had a fetish for schizophrenia? Part of this actually happened, but I'll get to this later. Okay, so the delusion there. Okay, the part that happened with regards to the FBI agent is they kept trying. There was a brief moment where they tried to tell me they were cops. This is actually completely unrelated to this. And there was also a moment where the one guy tried to role play. Okay, this is a whole thing. I should not have talked about anonymous FBI agent. God, does he haunt me. Okay, none of these people are in the FBI. A couple of them from the Oak Harbor ring. One was a deputy, and the other is currently a school resource officer. But other than that, these people have nothing to do with the government. And, you know, the cops didn't have anything to do with the government either. It's just like two dudes, and they were, well, you know, they happen to be into molesting kids. There's no government conspiracy or anything like that. They just happen to have a good career. So the delusion of it was, you know, the more I think about it, the more I feel like there wasn't much. I had a delusional reaction to something that I'm pretty sure was sort of happening. There were no FBI agents. Okay, so basically what was happening was there was this guy who would do ridiculous shit. I only partially remember this. A couple of them role-played being CIA agents. One role-played being a CIA agent. The other role-played being an FBI agent. They did like this sex game where they were from different branches of law enforcement. And then it was like, you know how in porn sometimes like people put on uniforms and pretend to be cops? It was this kind of thing. I know that sounds fucking ridiculous. Okay. So, that was happening. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I've thought about it. Did this even have to do with that sex game? It's the same people. I'm thinking about the same people. I haven't thought about this in a while. Okay, so you're remembering all these weird sex games. There were others besides that. But yeah, this one guy had this CIA torture sex game where there was this girl that he was obsessed with having sex with. He was obsessed with her, and I don't know if the women, one of them was definitely a human trafficker. I don't know if the women were aware they were being trafficked. The one definitely wasn't. She left to Canada. That was my ex-girlfriend. She won't talk to me anymore. That's one of the people who corroborated my experiences of this ring. She's the daughter of one of the professors. Anyway, so anyway, it doesn't fucking matter. I often fixate on who was an accomplice and who was a human trafficker and who was like me. I was not there voluntarily, ever, at any point. I think it's probably pretty obvious based on how roofied the person is, but I don't know, maybe not necessarily. Anyhow, so he did this thing where he would roleplay being in the CIA, and he's like, Infinity is a dangerous sex predator. They're a pedophile, and they're going to molest thousands of kids unless we stop this horrible terror. And then he kept saying I was a terrorist, and then he was like, isn't this so cool, you know, because everyone's racist against Indian. This person happened to be Indian. You know, now the white person, for some bizarre reason, a couple of my abusers didn't know that much about my past history, I guess, and didn't even realize I was Mexican. They kept saying I was white. It was kind of funny. But so that guy was like, so yeah, the white woman is the terrorist, and you're the one that's going to take them down with me, my partner. You're a secret agent from India, and your family is actually a government family. I swear to fucking God. So he, like, would role play schizophrenic delusions. That's literally what he would do. It was the weirdest fucking thing. And then I don't know if it's waterboarding, but I was tied down to a dentist chair in this abandoned place that they kept taking me to. It's like a warehouse, and it has these like side rooms, and this one had a dentist chair in it. A couple of them had like cheap cots. And they put a washcloth over my face and poured water over me until I felt like I was dying. And then that went on for, I guess, an agonizing amount of time. Sleep deprivation? I don't know. So my memory is super incomplete, if you can't tell. That's one of the worst things about this. I hate that I keep saying, this is really a complicated thing to talk about. You know, I like to consider myself a verbally fluent person. Words are very important to me. Love the spoken and the written word. Hope I finish my book someday, speaking of the written word. I'm getting there. Okay, I'm proofreading it. That's it. It's the simplest stage. I got writer's block on proofreading. Who the fuck does that happen to? Okay, so what the fuck was I talking about? I was psychotic in a particular way in the winter of 2018, and you will see it's completely based on things that actually happened. So there's this guy role-playing being a CIA agent, there's a bunch of other stuff that I'm not saying here. Every night it was a new fucking thing when I lived with those people, and then afterwards I got nabbed. According to my memories, this is hard to believe, but it was under the pretense that I had a good professional relationship with those people. So they basically just got me in the car with them and then gave me like a drink, like, here, try some tea, and then I like passed out. That's literally all there was to like half the abductions. They didn't become violent until later in the game. Okay, so I became psychotic in a particular way in that. Okay, so I had an empty chat room. And I specifically thought that, now this was not specifically based on any particular memory necessarily. I'm like remembering these snapshots all out of order. I don't know what sense to make of them. Most of what I remember is just shots of people being like, and then if you call the police, you'll go away. And then it's like 10 different 5-second shots of me being raped. There's not a lot of context. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I can say I was being raped or assaulted, and maybe this threat was made, but there's a lot missing, actually, from the very beginning. So, going forward, I basically projected what I couldn't remember. I found a lot of delusions in the things that I couldn't remember, and then when I eventually had my memories eventually unrepressed, I realized that my delusions were completely and entirely related to the repressed memories. Okay. So, I had this weird fucking delusion that this was a particular one in 2018. I don't have this anymore. It was just involuntary human trafficking. Okay. So, I thought that I was in an arranged marriage with, I didn't know who. It changed every fucking day. I think depending on who had raped me based on the memories the next day. It corresponded with who had raped me the last night. And this is psychotic, mind you. You know, like how I remembered CIA Torture Man? There's no arranged marriage or anything like that. Like, there was an arranged relationship in that they were trying to set me up with a trafficker from the ring. But that's not like a marriage or anything like that. It's just like they were trying to fuck with me and like get me to live with one of them for more fun. So, but other than that, and you know, so they could control me. It's human trafficking 101. But other than that, there was no like arranged anything like that. But so this is all psychotic, but it's thematically related to what had actually happened to me. So I'm in this chat room screaming at them, making these insane demands that I wanted to be in an arranged marriage with this guy instead of that guy. I had all these weird delusions. Okay, so I thought I was in an arranged marriage. But here was the thing. I think that I was just really psychotic and I kept reimagining who in the ring the arranged marriage was with, so it just changed constantly, but it was like from all of the people in the ring and only them. It never generalized to other people. And I kept thinking one of them was a serial killer, but he only kills bad people like Dexter, like serial killers and pedophiles and human traffickers. And he wanted to bring in a new era of human trafficking where it's just killing pedophiles in snuff rings and raping them. And I was desperately in love with whoever it was. It kept changing between like 10 different dudes. It was hilarious. And I was told that I had to pretend to be a pedophile to infiltrate the pedophile ring so that I could give him the information on who was a pedophile, and then we would like kill them or something. The way in which we killed them changed between like we would like maybe report them to the police, or it became report them to the police sometimes, but the actual relationship was supposed to be we were all in the ring together and we were just going to like casually poison them to death over time. Something like that. It changed every so often. He also wanted me to kill his wife with him and poison her progressively with him over time until she died because she's a pedophile. And I actually have a suspicion. I have not remembered this yet. I have a suspicion somebody tried to egg me into thinking that was real, and that they tried doing this before I had my psychotic break. So, well, anyway, because I was being raped by these people, I was desperately in love with this guy no matter what strange thing I thought. I thought he was a child serial killer sometimes. It was the weirdest fucking thing. I went back and forth between thinking this guy was a child serial killer and a pedophile versus he kills pedophiles and I'm his accomplice in killing pedophiles. So I am in this chat room. Mind you, I'm doing this for 12 to 16 hours a day. Not even 10 hours. It's like maybe 12 to 16 hours a day. I am just typing in an empty chat room to this fucking guy that is in real life raping me, but I'm actually fucked up over him. I think we're killing pedophiles together. I think that I'm basically being trained. So that was the like fucking delusion that he was training me to be like a human trafficking hitman that kills pedophiles. And he was like, there's going to be not millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars when you fix your hits and pull them off. And I'm like typing to him in my fucking chat room for hours every fucking day. And then the broken pot plant brought me to my senses for some bizarre reason, and I left and got much better almost immediately. But I was still severely mentally ill after that with flashbacks of it, which made me want to violently attack people. Only the people involved in that, though. I never would. I am not violent. Like, literally, these people tried to murder me, and if I had them in the room with me, I'd just be like, hey, man, I can't believe you did that, you asshole. Feel like you owe me something. Friendship or something. This is the worst part of my Stockholm syndrome. I'm like, hey, guys, you're such a significant part of my life. Why won't you be my friend? It's like, thank God they're not my friends. I only tried to be friends with the ones that, okay, there was a really complicated thing. They tried to get me to stay with certain people in the ring. And I tried to be friends with the ones that I had the most complicated and fucked up relationships with in these memories in the ring. I think that's coincidentally why my feelings for them were so strong. And they didn't want to be my friend. Actually, a couple of them did, but I eventually... Well, anyway, that's complicated. It involves multiple people and multiple stories. I have too many open stories that I have not finished right now on the docket, so to speak. So, yeah, so I was actually fucking insane. Like, that idea makes no fucking sense, but you can see how it's related to the actual rape. So those ideas were not memories. Like this idea that I'm being trained. I had this weird idea that the guy that I'm in love with, that's actually a good guy that's just killing the bad guys. I had this idea, but it was not a memory that we were going to hotels and swimming together, and he wants me to think he's an agent with the government, but I know he's really a human trafficker. And I had all these fucking weird ideas that were not based on a memory whatsoever. And they were fucking crazy. All this weird ass shit. I had all these ideas that he was like gonna leave his wife at this point. This car being parked like that was him. He just like, I had an idea that he had bought this rental car in my parking lot to prove that he is there and he loves me. That was fucking crazy. I have not been like that before since. I said weird shit to one of the rapists that was like, the rainbow of death will, the organized crime rainbow of death will change the world, or some weird shit like that. And it was fucking bizarre. It was fucking crazy town. I'm not like that anymore. I did have low-grade psychosis for a long time after that. I'm still almost like in a constant manic episode, like a mild one at all times, but I don't have any fucking delusions like that. That was fucking bizarre. So that had almost, I mean, like, it was thematically related to some of the things that happened in the memories, but it's not based on the actual memories. So there you go. That's why I feel crazy. Sometimes I was crazy. I remembered them drugging and raping me and stunning, especially on the head, does cause psychosis. You can Google it. And then lo and behold, I had the weirdest fucking psychotic break, and now I'm normal. Sort of. I still have a lot of issues, but I'm a lot better now than I was then. My issues aren't delusional like that, exactly. So I have a lot of issues with wanting to have a relationship with some of the people that tortured me. Just because, like, imagine if you were married for 10 years and then they tortured you, you know, on a nightly fucking basis. And then just remove the marriage and just keep the torture. It's like a real fucking relationship, even though I never consented to any of them. And I sort of, falling in love isn't really the right term. There is, I swear to God, they rate me on drugs, and I'm pretty sure there's like a type of addiction, almost like fiending. I've never done hard drugs voluntarily, but I know what fiending feels like from being drugged and corrupted. So I swear to God, it does. It makes my feelings for them unnaturally severe. It's sort of like, well, the woman that knows she should leave her husband, he abuses her, but she loves him. That's pretty much what it was, except embarrassingly, they never wanted to have a real relationship with me. They just wanted to sadistically torture me in a rape ring against my will. So I'm desperate over those people, and I know I shouldn't be. And if I'm lucky, I'll never have contact with any of them again. Kind of one of those things where it's like, for my own good, hopefully I'll never have contact with them again. But some part of me desperately wants to. I fiend for them like how I imagine a heroin addict fiends for heroin. Again, I've never voluntarily done heroin, but I think I know what that addiction is like a little bit. I feel like I've had a fucking stroke over some of the people that trafficked me and raped me multiple times for years. Years in some cases. So the memories are real. Sometimes I get psychotic ideas. They resolve eventually. They're connected to the missing parts of my memory, is what it seems to be in some cases. In other cases, it seems to be the acute effects of trauma and drugs. In other cases, God, there's too many different cases. Do you ever go into a conversation midway and you're just like, shit, why did I say I have 2 examples? Now I can think of like 4. Or the opposite, you're like, I have 4 examples. And you get midway through the list and you're like, all right, moving on. After number 2, you're just like, hopefully no one remembers I said I had 4 examples. But yeah, so the temporary psychoses caused by having actually been trafficked, like I keep claiming, do go away. There's some residual damage. But is there? Actually, to be honest with you, I'm sort of thinking back on it and all my weird psychoses. Aside from the behavioral instability, so being in love with my abuser is not really, that's not psychotic. I mean, that's stupid of me. And I'm not going to go back to them. And I am moving on. I'm making significant progress in moving on, actually. Thank God. Thank God. So that's not a psychotic issue. Wanting contact with them and occasionally breaking down and trying to cry to them over email when they're very dangerous people, and some of them have tried to retaliate or have actually battered me. A couple people tried to take me to court. A couple people started stalking me, showed up in my hometown, and battered and stunned me again. Probably guess who did that one. Yeah, so some retaliated legally and some retaliated not legally. So I keep wanting to not say that he showed up in my town because some stupid version of me wants to catch him here in town and epically call the police and get him caught. I shouldn't do that. The police would fucking tell me, don't ever fucking do that or even think about that. They've sort of passive-aggressively implied that I need to stop handling my criminal problems on my own, like I'm some kind of a person that can handle complex situations that no normal person can. Not even a law enforcement officer probably could. So I was raised with this idea that the police are either incompetent or corrupt. I was raped by a couple of police officers as a kid and as an adult. So, but I gotta trust that the police could do something. That's so hard for me. They're just people, just like me. And, I do sympathize with the police from that perspective, but I have very little optimism for that route. But it's the one that I'm going with, and I'll try that one for a very long time. Then after that, I guess I just won't do anything. I can't solve this shit on my own. I'm not gonna violently retaliate. That was never something I ever wanted to do, even at my most insane and unstable and angry. For some people, I think that's just not in them. Killing. Self-defense is one thing, but I have wanted to kill them before, actually. I'm sorry, that experience is so compartmentalized. I have alternate identities for things that are not a traumatic memory. I have a daily life identity that manages feelings of wanting to, retaliate. So, yeah, I do. But I wouldn't actually do it. I would never actually do it. I always feel weird admitting to stuff like that because, the people that abused me always told me people would look like I was insane and violent and like I'd hurt them and stuff if I was ever honest, and especially if I was ever honest about how much this stuff fucks me up emotionally. But, I would never actually hurt them. Having strong feelings doesn't mean you'd actually act on them. And that's where I'll go with that idea of killing just isn't inside some people. It isn't. Even if I could prove without a shadow of a doubt that my memories were real. And first of all, I would never... And first of all, if I could prove without a shadow of my doubt that my memories were real, I'd probably have enough evidence to go to the police with and get them put away. So this is a worthless fucking hypothetical that I shouldn't torture myself with. I feel bad anytime I have aggressive or violent or even mean thoughts about someone else. I feel uncharitable. I believe, and I say this as someone who, I'm about to cry for some reason. I'm not really sure what the trigger is. Someone who survived a lot. I still see everyone as valid in some way. I don't want to hurt people. What's a better way to put that? But I feel bad for having thoughts of wanting to, well, let's say someone raped you and you flash back to it and you feel pretty angry about it and could be like, well, I want to get revenge or whatever, all that stupid crap. I feel really bad about that. I'm really hard on myself about it. But yeah, I don't think I could ever actually do anything like that. The idea of harming someone, not the idea, the act of harming someone outside of a self defensive purpose. It's just something some people are capable of doing and others aren't. I don't think I could kill someone unless there was a self defensive reason. Like a guy is there in front of me with a gun. Like, I know I'm telling you that I'm receiving these death threats when I get raped and stuff, and you could say that I have a self defensive purpose. Jesus fucking Christ, I can't even fucking do it for a self defensive reason. It would haunt me for the rest of my fucking life. Even if I could do it in a way where it would like be legal because it was self defense, I can't fucking do it. So, but I still feel very hard on myself for having negative thoughts even towards those people. What else was I talking about before I got into negative thoughts and how emotionally disturbed I feel after all of this? So I guess my issues that none of these are really psychotic, to be honest with you. Kind of stuck in almost like a permanent mania. So I'm like more talkative than I should be, a little bit more obsessive and fixate. Not obsessive like stalking, but it's like I might fixate on something retarded for a long time, longer than someone else would. I might talk a lot. Like a good example I can think of is like, let's say one person would post one tweet a week. I might talk to myself about nothing really important excitedly, like a crazy person, for like a couple hours. Not even a couple hours. I'm not doing it that much, honestly. But I might talk more excitedly and more frequently than I should. It's really just look at what happens in a manic episode. It's just that. And that can be very annoying. That can lead to me being a lot more anxious and a little bit more paranoid. Not paranoid in the like psychotic way, like the aliens are coming kind of way, but paranoid in the kind of way where it's like, you're just sort of distrustful of other people in the like generic way. The like not psychotic version, the kind that some people are just like, I have all those mental illnesses, but I'm just speaking specifically about stuff that happened after trauma. I'm trying to think of any type of residual psychosis. My thoughts are clearing up. I did have a lot of really confused thinking for a long time. But after remembering stuff, it gets better. It's completely related to flashing back. Any confusion that I have now, it's completely related to flashing back. I come to my senses pretty quickly. But that can lead to me saying something really fucking insane and retarded at like 8 in the morning, and then by 8 p.m. I reread it and I'm like, that was fucking retarded. Why did I say that? Now everyone thinks I'm retarded. Why wouldn't they? I think I am after reading this. So that happens to me constantly. That's not really like a psychosis though. A lot of people with DID have schizophrenic alternate identities. Like it's just a common thing. Some have autistic or mute identities as well. It's just tied to my alters. It's getting much better though. Thank fucking God. This is one symptom that's like permanently getting better. And it's completely tied to remembering. It's fucking crazy. Remembering and no longer being abused. So this year is the least I've ever been abused. There have been a couple of moments of retaliation, a couple of attempts to re-traffic me to friends of people that I don't know this for sure. Actually, I do know this for sure because I remember them bragging about it to me in one of those memories. So there were a couple of weird things like that. Okay. So that's where I'm at now. I'm still wrong about a couple of things. When I first started having repressed memories and did not realize I was being roofied and raped in the present, I thought I'd been like abused in a cult or something retarded like that. And it was kind of like a cult in that it's a group of people and that a lot of them have some really fucking strange ideas about the world. In terms of like the rapists, a very particular ring of them were obsessed with sexuality, but not like regular sexuality, like rape sexuality. Like they were profiling each other based on whether or not they're like a power rapist or an violent rapist or a sadistic rapist. Then some of them were pedophiles and they tried to hide it from the others. And then some of them wanted to kill people and they tried to hide it from the others. Basically like the different types of monsters, so to speak, even within the same ring, were like keeping secrets and shit from each other. I remember a lot as time goes on, to the point where I'm pretty sure they kept me partially conscious during it. It seems that was the fun. It was about the sadistic torture. I wasn't just like an unconscious body that they were raping. The fun was getting to torture me. Otherwise, just get a normal prostitute. Why get an illegal prostitute? It's all about the torture. So yeah. Where was I going with that? Completely forgot. I'm so tired. What time even is it? 1 a.m. Motherfucker. I can't remember how long I've been doing this for. Wow, a long ass time actually. So I really don't have any more strange ideas, to be honest with you. The vague memories that were really just weird snapshots of weird shit happening, and half the time I'm on drugs, eventually solidified into, I'm sure I'm still wrong about a lot of details. But now it's at the point where it's like I have a pretty strong sense. So you know how, like, I don't know, let's say you could think back on your high school years. There's like a selection of memories and different dramas you had with your friends and blah, blah, blah. What else would there be from that time period? Just kind of like this general sense of I did this and this and this, and this is what the social dynamics were like, and this was what my routine was like. Okay, now I'm like remembering it like it's just normal, like it was a part of my life. I had a routine. I had these relationships with people that were very fucking stupid and were basically them sadistically torturing me. A lot of them would just talk about their life too and really weird things they were struggling with. I'm going to start writing down some of them because a lot of them were ridiculous. So, yeah. I feel like that actually summarizes most of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. I'm mostly not crazy, so like, just imagine that I'm mostly not crazy, but I have a bunch of retarded alternate identities and flashbacks, so I'll just randomly glitch out multiple times throughout the day. I'm also abnormally talkative and basically in a permanent manic episode because of the electrical damage. And I do still have some weird thinking from the drugs that were used, but it's getting better permanently. It's not even weird thinking. It's really just like the problems you'd find in a hypomanic or a manic episode. So I know that I can be socially abnormal because of those things, and I'm very self-conscious about it. Okay, well, I guess that's the whole thing. I hope people liked it. I need to make a new overlay. I moved where all of my... Oh, hey, LD, what's up? Oh my god, that was a while. That was a while ago. I'm reading any and all chat messages. DC was here. Oh, there's a first-time chatter. Hey, what's up, LD? Hey, Jay, what's up? Welcome in. Thank you so much for stopping by. But yeah, I'm gonna head to bed now. I'll read what you guys had to say later. I appreciated getting to be real here, though. I very rarely do talk in depth about things because it's very complicated and involved a lot of different things, some of which were unknown. So, but yeah, I'm mostly not crazy in the traditional sense, but because it really happened, I am sometimes crazy in a PTSD sense. I really like Mad Eye Moody from Harry Potter, and also how everyone responds to Mad Eye Moody. This is one final stupid thing that I'm going to mention before I go to bed. He's introduced in the fourth book as this dude that they think, which, by the way, I hate that most of what you see in Mad Eye Moody is just some guy impersonating him. So this was, I guess, technically partly some guy impersonating him. But he's like, the Oars, the wizard police were like, oh yeah, Mad Eye Moody went off the fucking handle again. He's always, claiming that there's some plot against him, but really it's just someone's like enchanted dustbin just wandered off their property into his. And that's fucking Mad Eye Moody. Like, that's fucking me. I really identify with that. And there are people that do respond to me like that. They know it's from PTSD. They also know that I'll randomly freak out for like a fucking hour or even like a couple days and then realize it was like an anxiety thing or a PTSD thing. But yeah, I fucking love that example. It's really too bad he dies without ever getting to be a real character. Take care, everybody. Good night. Thanks for watching this.